Welcome into the USFL betting show. I am Drew Martin, joined by Adam Trigger. We got Rob, Veno, Tony Mejia of WagerTalk.com. We are breaking down the games for this upcoming week, week 2, also a week 1 recap real quick off the top. Throw it around the horn here. Trig, welcome in, man. And what were your thoughts, week 1 of the USFL?
Well, Drew, I thought it was entertaining to watch. The first game had a great crowd, and it was probably the best game of the weekend in terms of a competitive game that was sort of enjoyable football. Meaning the Birmingham, New Jersey game on Saturday night. The rest of the week, the games got a little uglier, a little less sort of clean offense. We had a lot less scoring. Certainly, the first game, 28-24, gets there for the over. And then all three other games went under, with two of them going under relatively easily. Um, I think there's a lot of room for improvement for the league in general. There was only really two teams that I felt like played really complete sort of games that I was impressed with from a gameplay standpoint. But I think we'll see more of that going forward, and hopefully the league picks up some traction because as a fan, I just want football in the spring. It's great to have it. The broadcasts were pretty good, so I would say a pretty good start overall.
Sure. And Robbie, coming to you next. If you just check out Twitter, a lot of times there's a lot of a lot of haters out there that will throw shade at it. But to Trig's point, I mean, that first game, the stands were packed. Outside of that, there wasn't a lot of people eating. We'll see how that goes going forward. Could be interesting. But in terms of the gameplay and the way that the TV stations handled it, the camera work, bringing us into the coaches calling in the plays with the players, I thought it was awesome. I actually feel like the NFL can learn things from the USFL. It was almost a better viewing experience for me watching on my couch, just because it brought me more into like, hey, this is how it works, hearing the gameplay on the field. I thought it was really cool, man. Interested in your thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, that's the way the AAF did it. It's the way the XFL did it. They let you listen to the play call straight from the OC's mouth. And, you're right, Drew. They probably, I mean, it would be more fan friendly, obviously. And for those trying to learn the game, it certainly is a nice tool to have. I mean, as somebody who feels like I know the game pretty well, still hearing those long play calls and having the analysts try and explain to us, this means this is going to be a run, it's going to go this way, blocking is going to go this way. So it's good to have on for guys who like the X's and O's. I think to Adam's point, the initial game, the New Jersey Birmingham game, was the better game. A lot of that had to do with weather. The rest of the weekend was miserable weather to the point where Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh had to be postponed till Monday night. I think, Tony, you hinted at weather might be in a problem last week when we did the show. It certainly was. If you look at field goal kicking, it was brutal. There were a ton of missed field goals in play last week, and not a lot of attempts at 2-point conversions or 3-point conversions yet. So it seems like maybe coaches trying to get a little bit comfortable. We'll get into detail about individual teams as we go on, but again, I echo Adam's sentiment. It's good to have spring football. I hope it sticks for that reason. Looked like the viewing audience was pretty good for USFL the first weekend. I don't know if that's just the novelty of it or if that's going to be something that continues through the spring. Hopefully, when they're not up against stuff like 4 NBA playoff games in one day, the numbers can go up even higher. But I liked it. As a football guy, I liked it first weekend.
And guys, we're going to be breaking down all 4 games on the week 2 slate. But first, got to hear Tony talk. I'm Tony. Welcome to the show, man. What were your thoughts here week 1 USFL?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to handicap football, NFL, XFL, USFL, AccuWeather has to be your friend. You have to check in on that app. So happy to report that the weather for this weekend's USFL week 2 will be nice and sunny, 80s. The high on Saturday, it'll be nice in the 70s for these night games. So the Sunday game in the mid 80s. So maybe we'll get a little bit of heat to look to see who has more stamina. But for the most part, the opener was the best game, best attended game. If you don't like that, I don't think you're going to like this league. What New Jersey and Birmingham brought to the table, it definitely seems like the Stallions will have a home field advantage in Birmingham adopting them. They've got the fan friendliest game on this weekend in week 2 with a Saturday night contest against the Gamblers. I thought the gameplay in that game was tremendous. Great catches. You really couldn't say a bad word about it. And then there was some less than stellar play the rest of the weekend. I was watching Heat Hawks and managed to click over just in time to see Shea Patterson in the play of the weekend where he falls backwards in the end zone. Not the best moment, and I caught that they actually did something on Reggie Northrup, the defensive captain of that team, that ended up picking up the fumble and going the rest of the way for the scoop and score. So that was a nice bit of production from NBC at that point. But yeah, I mean, look, we'll have to see who over compensates for what they saw in week 1 in terms of lines. I definitely have some spots that I'm looking to hit. I went 2-1 on my wagers and only lost that over in the New Orleans game because of missed field goals, which I know you won by hitting the under. So at least one of us got one.
Yeah, that was a good one. The first game, or I guess, that was the second or third game of the week 1 slate. But guys, let's get into the games right at the top here. We got New Jersey and Michigan, the Panthers and the Generals. We can throw it up here in terms of 41 being the total. We're seeing now New Jersey -1 favorites. So, of course, this being in Birmingham, Alabama, all the games at the same stadium, at least for the week 2 slate. This is a Friday night game here, Tony. Start off with you first, man. What are you thinking? Panthers and Generals, 41 being the total. Competitively priced game here in New Jersey, just the -1 favorite. 8 o'clock prime time Friday night, Birmingham, Alabama. What are you liking, Mejia?
Well, as far as week 1 is concerned, you definitely came away more impressed with New Jersey and their loss than with Michigan and their setback. The Panthers had 3 fumbles in the second quarter, and neither Shea Patterson nor Paxton Lynch, for being the household names of this league, both pretty terrible. They actually completed as many passes in the first half as they fumbled 5 times. So they put the ball on the ground 5 times, lost 3, completed 5 passes in that first half. So it was ugly. We'll see if they can bounce back. But certainly I would favor New Jersey based on what I saw in week 1. I would favor them by more than a point and a half. So you wonder if there isn't any value in Michigan rallying.
Yeah, and I mean, bringing up favorites. Favorites did well in week 1, Adam. Also, unders were 3-1 towards the under. What are you thinking here? 41 being the total, slight favorites for New Jersey.
So in this game right here, I guess I'll start with this. If our good friends at the Westgate were putting look-ahead lines out for USFL, and there was a line for this game prior to week 1, I think you would have had something like Michigan minus 3.5. I think that's honestly what the line probably would have been here for this game prior to week 1. Now, to see Michigan as a 1-point underdog, I have to wonder how much of an overreaction this is to one game. With that being said, Michigan, man, they might have played the worst half of football of the whole weekend in the first half against the Gamblers. But some of that was self-inflicted, right? Like, there was multiple drives that Michigan didn't finish. There's the catastrophic turnover that it looked like Michigan was about to either tie or take the lead, and all of a sudden they're down 11-0. But I agree with Tony. I think if you want to talk about who was the more impressive looking team in their week 1 matchup, it was definitely New Jersey. But I had New Jersey and Birmingham as 2 of the bottom teams coming into week 1, and so now I have to ask myself, are they really at that good, or was it 2 potentially poor teams playing each other? I think it's probably somewhere in between. Now, I did say on the first show that I didn't think Michigan was going to be the best team in this league, which they certainly weren't after week 1. But I don't think they're the worst either. So for this game, I think there's some value potentially in Michigan +1, based on the fact that I think they probably would have been far bigger favorites a week ago. But I'm not, they've got some stuff to figure out at the quarterback position. They've got 2 quarterbacks right now. And Drew, when you have 2 quarterbacks, sometimes you don't have a quarterback, right? Or whatever the saying is. I'm not sure I'm ready to back Michigan yet. But I think from a value perspective, the +1 is enticing.
Yeah, and Robbie, coming to you last on this game, to Adam's point, when you have two quarterbacks, do you really have one? It was interesting to see a lot of teams playing two quarterbacks, at least giving them, a couple reps talking about the backup quarterback here. But speaking of to this game, Robbie, New Jersey and Michigan, both 0-1, both straight up and against the spread. Of course, total of 41 here. What are you liking in this first game, Rob?
Yeah, I think I would answer that question, Drew. If you have two quarterbacks, what do you have? If you're going to answer it specifically where New Jersey is concerned, I think Mike Riley outsmarted everybody last week. I think he did the best coaching job of anybody. Two different styles of offense made it very, very difficult on the Birmingham defense. Again, we mentioned Luis Perez last week. Luis Perez is a veteran of the XFL. And he played good ball in the XFL, very, very overlooked. But when they were throwing the football, Luis Perez was out there completing passes and touchdown passes. And then you turn to ex-FAU QB DeAndre Johnson and you run the ball. I mean, they had three guys with double-digit rushing attempts last week, the quarterback being one of them. And I think DeAndre Johnson led the team in rushing last week. So that's a lot to prepare for. First of all, it was a lot to prepare for Birmingham because I don't think they knew it was coming. Michigan does know it's coming. We'll see what they can do about it. But it looked like that run blocking offense was pretty good in that particular game. Now, there are a lot of teams, and these are two of them, that leaned heavily on the rush in week one. New Jersey ran it 44 times. I think we all know Jeff Fisher is going to run the football. That's all he knows how to do. They ran it 46 times, but 222 yards rushing for New Jersey with that added element of the quarterback run. Right now, I think, Drew, they're a little bit ahead of the curve against opposing defenses from an offensive perspective. I think this system that Mike Riley has can only get better. We'll see if the defenses catch up to it. And then if you're looking for positives for the Michigan team, they did outgain Houston 363 to 174. They did hold a plus 13 something minute time of possession advantage. They ran 79 plays to 45. I think that game speaks volumes to how bad Houston might be. Although Houston got to the quarterback three times, we're a little worried about that Michigan offensive line. So I think off of what I saw in week one, I would lean New Jersey. Again, I just think that Mike Riley had a pretty good approach that other teams that use two quarterbacks didn't necessarily have a real game plan with them. It was more or less, process of elimination. Let's give these guys a look. I think Mike Riley had a real game plan going in with these two guys. I think he will this week as well.
Good point, Robbie. In terms of Michigan has seen the tape. So in terms of preparing for a mobile quarterback, they'll kind of know a little bit more what's coming. That could kind of change things. And to your point, DeAndre Johnson in that two quarterback system had just under 100 yards rushing, looking good doing it in the only game that finished over. So we'll see how New Jersey does this week. We got two games on Saturday, guys. The first one here during the day, 12 noon Eastern time, 263. 264, the rotation numbers. Pittsburg Maulers at the Philadelphia Stars. I say at, of course, it's in Birmingham here, Trig. -7, that's the Stars as the favorite. 35 being the total. This is the one total that has taken a huge movement here in terms of likely money, maybe just respected bettors, but open 41. Now it's down to 35. Open 39, down to 35 here. So a pretty big move, especially percentage-wise. It opened so low. You don't see this normally in terms of NFL college football betting, but what are you thinking here overall, Maulers and Stars?
So, Drew, my one best bet of week one, I was on the Stars plus 2.5. They lost to New Orleans 23-17, but I watched all four games, and I got to be honest, I think I was probably most impressed with the Philadelphia team from just a football aspect. Meaning, I thought Brian Scott, their quarterback, he actually led all passers in passing 202 yards. I thought he looked the most like a capable sort of quarterback in terms of just being on the same page with his receivers. The issue what really happened to Philly was they just made mistakes. Early in that game, Scott made a really big error through a pick six. And then the other issue with Philly was their offensive line just couldn't block. And so the reason I bring that up is because I think Philadelphia's mistakes are probably correctable. So I still like this team going forward. Now, this number seems a little bit inflated. I mean, 7 is a lot to lay. The Maulers, listen, they were bad, but they probably went up against what I think. I don't know if everyone agrees with this, but I think Tampa is far and away the best team in this league. They were excellent defensively, and the Maulers just the concern for me, the reason I'm probably not gonna come back in and take the 7 here, they just didn't make a single adjustment throughout that game. They it was like they were just gonna bang their head into the wall, and it wasn't gonna work, and they were just gonna continue to do it. So I really do like Philadelphia. I was hoping to be able to come back and take them this week, but man, 7 seems a little pricey in terms of just like there doesn't seem like there's much line value there for me. But I do lean Philadelphia here. I think they're the better team.
Robbie, this is the biggest spread on the board here, -7 for the Stars, a full touchdown. What are you liking?
And first, I'll again reiterate what Adam said about Pittsburgh and that game plan. Kirby Wilson, I mean, my God, if I heard the word muscle, muscle, muscle one more time coming out of his mouth, all they wanted to do was, and it could be attributed somewhat, Drew, to the weather. So we got to be a little bit forgiving of the head coach, but it just seemed like his full intention for 4 quarters was to try and play bully ball and win, and he didn't win. To their credit, the defense played really well. Go through the statistics. The defense didn't give up much on the ground at all. I think 60-something yards rushing, only gave up 260 plus total yards to a team, again, with Jordan Ta'amu, who many would say is the best quarterback or potentially the best quarterback. It's a good debate to have, but he's in that category. And to Adam's point, I think that's why this makes this the trickiest handicap of the week for me. Is Pittsburgh that bad offensively, or was Tampa Bay just that good? Are they the best team? And that's a 17-3 loss against the best team in the league, which is excusable. And when you're coming back and getting 7 after you just held that best team in the league to what they held them to, pretty good, right? And then to the Philadelphia side, I talked last week about how the draft was staggered and how New Orleans got their first pick of the defensive ends and how I thought their pass rush would be really good. They were raving about their pass rush, and it destroyed Philadelphia. But will Pittsburgh's pass rush destroy Philadelphia, right? It's not likely. So, again, that's why these week 2s are tricky, because you don't really know the overall strength of any of these teams with only one result in the books. But you have to do a little bit of assumption on your own part, whichever way you stand on the handicapping fence. And to me, I think I'd prefer to take 7 points here against Philadelphia. I don't know that the offense is that any offense. Let me just say that. And I know we saw some margins. We saw Tampa win by 14, but I don't know if any offense is capable of just running away and stretching margins in this league as of yet. So with Pittsburgh playing the type of defense that they did against Tampa, I think if that defense shows up again, then Philly might win, but maybe not by the 7. And again, the spread is the great equalizer. So right now, I would hope for a couple of adjustments by Kirby Wilson, put Josh Love, San Jose State quarterback, with 2 of his own college receivers on the field, Bailey Gaither and Trey Walker, both San Jose State kids. A lot of familiarity there, but really wasn't used until they were down 17-0. Again, some weather related, so I'll be fair. But I think I would look at Pittsburgh +7.
And Tony, coming to you last, -7, I believe it's the biggest point spread in history of USFL here. And of course, we're talking about a 35-point total, Tony. That's kind of like Army-Navy style in terms of the total. So that spread even more magnified. What is your thoughts here between the Pennsylvania teams?
The esteemed battle of Pennsylvania and Birmingham. Look, you can get 6.5 if you like the Stars at Bet Rivers. So there's that, but their total is at 34.5, and I think I'm on the under bandwagon here. Josh Love getting the start instead of Kyle Lauletta. That's a slight upset, and as Rob referenced, they want to run the ball. Their head coach is Kirby Wilson, a veteran NFL running backs coach. Clearly, he's got a philosophy in place where they're not going to put the ball in the air a lot. And the Philadelphia Stars look decent on defense. They gave the Breakers some points, and obviously was a pick 6 involved there early, but their defense held up. And I think from the standpoint of you can't take anything for granted in this league scoring wise, because they missed a couple of field goals in Philadelphia, and obviously what you saw out of Pittsburgh didn't impress you offensively. I would think that points are going to be hard to come by in this one. Conservative approach. You've got two teams trying to avoid an 0-2 hole. So yeah, it'll be one of those games. I think it's going to be a rock fight, a little bit of a tug of war, and if the ball's on the ground a lot, in terms of the ground game being the primary driving force for both, that clock's going to keep running, and I think the under's got a good shot here. You shop for the best line, and you hope the best.
Good stuff, guys. We got 2 games left. Heading to the next one here, the Saturday night primetime game, Rob Veno. We got Birmingham, the Stallions, versus the Houston Gamblers, 41 being the total. We're seeing Beham minus 3-point favorites. What are you thinking in the nightcap on Saturday, Rob?
Yeah, I think that, of the 4 games that are on the slate here, Drew, and I will admit I've played one already. And in all likelihood, I'll get to this one because, again, we're doing a lot of assumption off of what we saw in week 1. But I do think Birmingham is probably a good side here, and it has as much to do with a fade of Houston as it does to being on Birmingham. Again, Birmingham wound up having the toughest assignment in week 1 because I think they got hit from left field by that 2-headed, different style offense that Mike Riley threw at them. Houston showed us, say what you want about Pittsburgh, but Houston showed us less than 0 capability of moving the football. Clayton Thorson, if I had to guess right now, quarterback rating wise, out of all the starters in this league that went last week, will end up as the lowest QBR rating of all the quarterbacks. They didn't show anything. I think last week it might have been Adam who said he thought they might be the worst roster in this league. And that roster showed up, whether or not that roster showed up, because as been said here a couple of times by the other guys with me, in Michigan in the first half gave Houston every single opportunity and basically lost the game in the first half. It's 17-0 first half. Michigan, despite the huge yardage advantage, despite the huge time of possession advantage, just couldn't overcome the mistakes that led to the 17-0. Houston didn't gain 200 yards worth of offense, couldn't run it, couldn't pass it. I couldn't find a single thing that Houston really could do well. And again, it could be that Michigan is that good defensively. We'll have to wait and see, but I'm going to trust my eyes here, Drew, and say that Birmingham has a nice offense. They're going to have the crowd support, as guys here with me have talked about already. And Houston just looks like offense is going to be a struggle early on until they figure something out down there. So I'm going to probably end up on Birmingham here, minus 3.5. Not the not the most recommended thing to do. Lay decent sized points, and in this league, 3.5 has to be considered decent size right now. But I think it's justified here. I just don't think Houston can compete offensively. I think Birmingham showed us against New Jersey that while they couldn't stop the run and a lot of that quarterback run, they're probably good enough on that side of the ball to stop Houston. So give me Birmingham minus the points.
I like Birmingham minus the points too, Trig. Jamar Smith, I believe he was named offensive player of week 1. And an interesting note here, of course, he played at Louisiana Tech under his head coach here in USFL, Skip Holtz. I think there's something to that, man. I really do. In the way that he understood the offense, it was clicking early on. I would look to kind of ride that here and lay the 3. What's your thoughts on this one?
Drew, I 100% agree with you. It's why I liked Philadelphia so much week 1, because I thought their players were going to be the most familiar with what the coach was trying to do. And I think they kind of were to some extent. But to go to this game here, I guess the reason that I didn't complete my sort of opinion of I knew I wanted to fade Michigan last week. The reason I couldn't do it is because I just couldn't stomach backing this Gamblers team, which, as Rob brought back up, I do think that they have talent-wise some of the worst in the league. I think that them winning last week is a complete. I think Michigan might have fumbled 9 times in the game. Like, I got to go back and double check that, but I think they had like 9 miscues. I don't know if it was like fumbles recovered or total fumbles. They recovered some, lost some, but it was something awful. And if you look, the disparity between what they gave up to what they gained against Michigan was huge. I talked about the play earlier, that the play that turned that game on its head was Shea Patterson's fumble. If that doesn't happen, I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan ends up winning that game. So I agree with Rob. Michigan just lost that game in the first half, and the Gamblers did just enough to get to the finish line and get the result. Do I want to lay 3.5 with Birmingham? I don't know. I still think you're paying a little bit of a premium. The home field advantage is definitely a thing. I think Birmingham does have a little bit of a home edge. I just don't know that I want to lay 3.5. I think I liked Jamar in that first game. I just in general, I think Birmingham was very impressive. It all right down to the final drive to win the game. So Birmingham's not a team I want to go against, and Houston's not a team I want to back. But I'm just not sure that I want to lay this number here. So a definite lean toward Birmingham. Maybe take the money line small. But that's how I would look to this game, because I really do think Birmingham's got better players and they played the better game week 1. So hard to see that not playing out again here.
Tony, coming to you in conclusion here, I'm seeing Birmingham -3 pretty much across the board at the WagerTalk odds screen, the 2 sports books I have up, and even 2.5 at Caesars right now. Not sure if that changes anything for you, but Birmingham, Houston, what are your thoughts here, Tony?
Yeah, look, I'm in agreement with the guys. I think Birmingham is probably the team to beat based on what we've seen in week 1, but we'll obviously take that with a grain of salt. And the understanding is that they will have the home field edge, because of the fact that they're the Birmingham team. And again, this is going to be a fan-friendly start, 7 p.m., I guess 6 local. So it'll be a situation where they'll have the backing throughout. But it does give me pause that the Gamblers forced 9 fumbles. They didn't recover all of them, but it was 9, Trig, and it was that's an obscene amount. They forced turnovers from both Patterson, which it helped that he was going backwards when the play started, but they got Paxton Lynch too. They got some of their running backs. So is this a case where their defense is going to be impressive? We'll have to see. So from that standpoint, maybe it's a second half bet in this game, just to see whether the efficiency that the Birmingham team showed in that second half comeback against New Jersey can flourish against a Houston Gamblers team that we don't really know how good this defense really is.
Guys, we got 1 game left here. Check out Tony Mejia, Adam Trigger, Rob Veno, and myself, Drew Martin at WagerTalk.com. All of us going to have plays up here for the Week 2 USFL card. We got MLB action as well, NBA playoffs, NHL if you're into the ice. All of that available at WagerTalk.com. We got a lot of free plays up and available. And feel free to reply below on the WagerTalk YouTube channel what you're looking to bet in the USFL. Last game on the card here, Trig. We got 3 o'clock on Sunday. New Orleans Breakers versus the Tampa Bay Bandits. We're seeing the Bandits -2 in the hook. 40.5 being the total. There is a 41 up at DraftKings. I think I remember you saying Tampa Bay, best team on the board. You interested in laying the 2 in the hook here, Trig?
Definitely game I'm considering, Drew. I haven't locked anything in yet, but I'm absolutely looking toward the Tampa Bay side here. I actually think 2.5 might be a little light in this game. New Orleans, we'll go back to the New Orleans Philadelphia game from last week. Their defensive line dominated Philly's offensive line, and that is without a doubt the reason they won that game. I guess if you wanted to take one other thing, you could say maybe Kyle Sloter's ability to move around and sort of make a play was a reason they were able to close that out. But I really think Philly sort of let them off the hook. One spot that comes to mind, like a 3rd and 13, where Philly had all the momentum, missed a tackle, and it allowed New Orleans to continue a drive, which they eventually scored the touchdown that they were able to win the game. Philly missed multiple field goals as well. So, that looks like a really good result for New Orleans, but Sloter didn't throw the ball terribly well. And outside of that, I really thought like overall gameplay, New Orleans was heavily penalized. They did quite a few things to beat themselves that I'm really still kind of shocked that Philly, when they came back and took the lead, couldn't make them pay for that and didn't win that game. Tampa Bay just went out and did what they had to do. They completely dominated Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh couldn't make an adjustment, and Tampa just kept getting stops and getting stops, and that was it. I thought the Tampa offense might have looked a little bit better, but as both other Rob and Tony pointed out, weather was a factor, and I felt like they just kind of did what they had to do, won the game, and they move on to this week. Tiamu, I think you can make a case that he's right up there with the most impressive quarterbacks in this league. The Tampa Bay defense looked really good. I think they've got the offensive line that can stop New Orleans pass rush a little bit. So it feels like on this side of three, it kind of feels light. I still think Tampa Bay is the best team on that in this league. What I saw week one doesn't really deter me from that. So this number feels a little short here. I would lay the 2.5 with Tampa.
Rob, Adam brings up some good points just in terms of Tampa Bay and how good they are. Temu at the quarterback position. And hey, there might be something how good is Tampa Bay's professional sports teams? The Bucks, the Rays, maybe it's just something in the water there on the west coast of Florida. Who knows? But at the same time, New Orleans Breakers, they're 1-0 themselves. They look pretty good out the gate. That offense got rolling, found some seams. So can make an argument here for both sides. I tend to agree with Trig, though. If you made me play this one, I'd likely lay it here with the favorite. What are your thoughts here, Rob Veno?
It's difficult, Drew. And again, you try to power rate these teams before the season started, and I had these two as the top two in the league, and I raised them both by 1 point off of last week. So they're pretty much still only 1 point separation with no home field. So from a power ratings value standpoint, 2.5. Probably a little bit of value in my eyes toward New Orleans. What scares me about Tampa Bay, 3.9 yards per play, not per rushing attempt, not per play. They couldn't gain 4 yards of play against Pittsburgh. And after watching that, again, we have to reiterate that New Orleans had their pick of the litter with the defensive linemen, and it showed. 6 sacks is no joke. And Scott is a pretty good quarterback for Philadelphia. We're going to find out if they can protect Jordan Ta'amu in this game. And I think in modern day football, pass rush has become, if not, one of the top 2 key ingredients that you have to have on your team, right? It always starts in the trenches, Drew. And right now we can see that New Orleans has it there. And on the offensive side, they were pretty balanced. 171 on the ground, 171 through the air, or maybe it was the other way around, 171 on the ground and 150 through the air. Slaughter didn't really have to do much. The defense did come up with a touchdown to help out, right? It's actually the difference in the game. They win by 6, and they had a return for a touchdown by their defense to start that game off. But I just, it's hard. Again, it's hard to compare how good Pittsburgh's defense is as opposed to New Orleans. But if Pittsburgh's defense isn't that good and they held Tampa to 3.9, I can only imagine what the New Orleans defense could do to them. Larry Fedora for New Orleans. Again, I want to mention his name once every show just for you, Joe, Larry Fedora, because I know that's our guy. But I think that offense will come along. So to me, it's a very, very difficult game. I think I would side with the Breakers right now. It's nothing I got to the window with, but no result here would surprise me. And that goes for the total, because I do feel like these two teams at some point will break out offensively. Whether it's against each other or not remains to be seen to get the 41 points. But we get a couple weeks from now, we may be talking about how these are the two best offenses in the league. Tampa Bay didn't show it week one. New Orleans, like Adam said, did what was necessary. We'll see how this goes.
And Tony, coming to you last, Rob Veno bringing up Larry Fedora, having some success in this part of the country here back in what was it, 2014, 2015. He was a great bet there with Southern Miss. Good offensive mind, catching 2.5 here. Rob Veno brings up in terms of the defensive line dominating and how important of a part of just the sport of football overall. So, hey, you get the better defensive front plus the points. Is Tampa Bay maybe actually a little bit overrated here, Tony?
The John Tenuta schemed defense coming up with big play after big play, and they dominated Philadelphia front on both sides of the ball, which is why, is this the first trap line of the USFL season? 2.5. It's inviting you to take the team that won by the most in the Bandits. We'll hopefully in June we'll have our wonderful production staff cut up my closing argument of the week one preview show where I said I like Jordan Ta'amu best and I like Tampa Bay to win this all. I nothing changed out of what I saw in week 1, but at the same time, this New Orleans Breaker squad in week 2 is going to give them all they can handle based on what I saw early. And the one key for New Orleans in that one over Philadelphia, they ended up running for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns, and they put the game away on the ground. So you want to check those boxes in terms of their defensive line dominated and their offensive line wore down an opponent. So we'll see how they fare against Tampa Bay. But I am in the agreement. I think Rob hinted at it by saying these are the 2 best offenses. These might just be the 2 best teams. And then to play early on, I would probably stay away from this game because I like Tampa Bay so much, but they didn't really show much. They didn't have to, although, because the Maulers didn't really tax them in any way. So this is going to be one of those games where you turn it on and you kind of study, because I do think that these 2 are going to be, I would say at least one of these teams will be in that final.
Okay, good stuff from Tony Mejia, guys. One more time around the horn here for best bets. Final thoughts. Feel free to go any which way you want, but trying to keep the show, I guess, under 30 minutes. So we're getting to that about that time right now. So my best bet for the show, I'm going to Pittsburg, Philadelphia, the first game on Saturday, 35 being the total. The Stars minus a touchdown here. And to Tony's point, he was just talking about the Maulers not being able to do anything, only scoring a field goal. I agree with this totals move. Big move towards the under, especially percentage-wise, because it opens so low. So to have this, 4+ point move towards the under, I think it's sharp. I'm on it as well. So I like the under in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, under of 35 for my best bet of the show. We got Rob Veno at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. Check him out, WagerTalk.com. NBA playoffs, MLB, USFL. You can find it all up on his page. Robbie, where are you going for best bets, man?
I guess this is the point where we talk about, step up in class or step down in class, even though we really don't know if it is or not. But I'm going to guess from what I saw that Birmingham has a severe step down in class this week in their opponent, Houston. Again, New Jersey showed them something I don't think they knew was coming, caught them a little bit off guard. They were still able to win the game, look good on both sides, have a home field edge. And Houston just, again, if Michigan wasn't so sloppy, maybe the result is different, but maybe Houston caused that sloppiness. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that Birmingham can win this one. If they can beat New Jersey by 4, they can beat Houston by 4. So I'm going to go ahead and take Birmingham minus 3.5 as my best bet for the show.
All right, good stuff, Robbie. And they're bouncing around right now between 3 and 3.5. It actually just moved to 3 looking at the WagerTalk odds screen right now. So now might be a good time to jump on there. Good analysis from Rob Veno on Birmingham. We got Adam Trigger on Twitter at TopFlightSI. Check him out, WagerTalk.com. Baseball going on, USFL going on. Adam, anything else you got going? Oh, KBO as well, man, on the other side of the world. So, final thoughts for the show and best bets.
Yeah, KBO's been going great, actually, Drew. I've been a nice little run there. We'll try to keep it going in the morning. I got to play out now. But best bet for this show, I don't think I get to I haven't released client plays yet. I will. I know of at least one I'm going to play. So for best bet for the show, I'll throw out Tampa Bay Bandits. And I'll just throw it out on the money line because I do expect them to win, minus 145. Listen, again, I go back to the New Orleans Philly game. I really felt like the Stars were the better team in that game. I felt like they outplayed New Orleans and made mistakes to lose it. Now, listen, there's no question New Orleans pass rush was impressive, and they did some things I like. I want to reiterate the fact that I like this New Orleans team. Down the road, they're a team I know I'm going to want to play on. But here, I do have Tampa Bay rated the number 1 team. If I were to make power rankings, I would have them number 1. And I don't think New Orleans is going to be able to abuse their offensive line the way they did to Philadelphia. At least, if anything, Tampa's going to be more prepared for it than Philly was, I think. And I don't think Tampa had to really, show much yet. I think they were able to get by with a very vanilla performance against Pittsburgh because they realized that Pittsburgh just couldn't do anything against them. So, Teamu, like Tony said, I think he's probably the top quarterback in this league. I think Tampa is capable of a lot more than they showed in that week 1 game. So I'll say Tampa Bay. I'll lay the -145 because I really don't want to lay points against New Orleans. So that's best bet for the show. Tampa Bay Bandits on the money line -145.
All right. We got Tony Mejia as well. Check him out. WagerTalk.com. NBA playoffs. Good analysis written up. If you're a volume better, he's your guy. He's godfather of volume, knows the USFL as well. Tony, where are you going for best bets, and any final thoughts for the show?
Well, I'm in agreement with Drew Martin bets. Great minds think alike. We like the under, maybe a Bayside High special, an AC Slater special, where they only beat their rival 7-0 on a touchdown on the first play because their faces are painted red. Look, this is one of those games where I don't expect to see offense. I think the line move is absolutely right, and 35 points. It'll probably be more than enough, and this will be a client play for me. So I'll give it out for free on the show. 2-1 in week 1, and we'll look to build on that. I do have a lean for Friday, may have a lean for Sunday, although may pass on that because I do think those are the two best teams. But as far as Pittsburgh, Philadelphia goes, to get us started on hot Saturday afternoon, points will be hard to come by. Give me the under.
Tony, I got to follow up though, man. You bring up Saved by the Bell. Really, AC Slater won 7-0. For some reason, I'm not remembering that episode. And
you don't remember
bringing up AC Slater,
man, it was like a homecoming game.
Okay,
and the final was 7-0. They scored. Everybody had their faces painted because of some allergic reaction or something. And the other team got spooked. They ran back the opening kickoff. Only points of the game. So maybe we'll only see one touchdown here too.
Nice. All right. I like it. So under the 35 from Tony Mejia. I'm on it as well, guys. That's the Maulers and Stars game. We got Trig Bandits money line -145 and Rob Veno on the Stallions -3. So guys, that does it for the show. Week 2 USFL. We'll be back next week. Same time, same place. Hey, if you're liking the content, guys, you want us to keep this going, please let us know below in the reply section. Let us know what you're betting, where you agree with us on, what else you'd like to see on the show. We're all ears here, and please smash that like button. We'll be back, next week for week 3 for Trig, Veno, Mejia. I am Drew Martin. Best of luck with your bets. Thanks for tuning in.